Testing sound, texting, testing.
Okay, can I just confirm that the live stream has commenced? Great, thank you. Hello everyone, I've got pleasure in opening the council meeting of the 18th of August 2026 at 6 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting on the lands of the Whadjuk-Noongar people and to pay my respects to the elders past and present, acknowledging that as the City of Vincent we have a role to play in working towards reconciliation and justice for First Nations people. Now, I note that everyone is here. We have, of course, one standing leave of absence for Councillor LaFontaine, who is on maternity leave. So I'm going to go straight to public question time. Can I just get an indication as to whether anyone wishes to address during public question time as opposed to a deputation? Okay, so we have no one who wishes to speak for public question time. Okay, if there are no questions, we can move on, and so we are closing public question time at 1 minute past 6. Governance Manager, can you please confirm if any written statements were received?
confirming that we have received written statements in relation to item 12.2 from Dudley Meyer of Highgate, and other questions that will be responded to in the minutes of the next agenda.
Okay, I have received an application for a leave of absence from Councillor Castle, who has requested a leave of absence from the 17th to the 25th of October 2026. Do I have a mover for that? Moved Councillor Wolfe. All those in favour? Okay, carried. Thank you.
Mayor Zaman, can I make a request for a leave of absence as well?
I'll get to that. Yep, I'll get to that in a moment. Just where my I was supposed to get a second. I should have got a second of that. Sorry, Councillor Wallace. That's what I was correcting myself on. Councillor Warner would like to second that. I'm going to put that motion again. Thank you. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Are there any further requests for leave of absence?
Yes, thanks. Late notice, but can I please request 31st of August through 21st of September?
Sorry, that was the 31st of August to the
21st of September.
21st of September. Okay, so Councillor Wallace has requested a leave of absence from the 31st of August to the 21st of September. Do we have a mover for that? It's moved Councillor Castle. Do we have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Greer. All those in favour? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you. Are there any further requests for leave of absence? Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zaman. Just from the 29th of August to the 6th of September.
Okay, Councillor Greer has requested a leave of absence from the 29th of August to the 6th of September. Do we have a mover for that? Moved Councillor Poulios, seconded by Councillor Castle. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Are there any further requests for an approved leave of absence? Okay, so we'll move on to the next thing. I have previously approved deputation to be received by, I believe it's going to be Robbie Williamson. Is that who's going to be doing? So Robbie Williamson, if you wish to come forward, and you will be giving us a deputation, as I understand it, on item 9.1. Okay, so have you forwarded through a presentation at all? Okay, so you've got 5 minutes to give the presentation directly to the councillors. Thank you.
I need every second. Thank you again, Mayor, for the deputation. Thank you, councillors. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. Pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. In my time today, councillors, I'd like to begin by responding to the administration's written submissions and their verbal briefing last week. I understand you still have our presentation from last week, and thank you for your time at the briefing last week as well. After going through the administration's case, I'll then discuss the impact this decision may have on the Castellarizian Association and our future plans. And following this council meeting, we will be sending a newsletter out to our members as to the result and how councillors voted. Regarding the administration's case, I'd like to address some of the points made from the outset. First of all, Castellarizian House is described as having a high degree of authenticity. And as described last week on Tuesday, we do not believe this is the case. First of all, there's a commercial kitchen that was installed in 2019, community room extension in 2023. Last week, the administration said that the main areas of interest was the Anzac Street frontage, and that was the key rationale for the heritage listing, the Anzac Street frontage. Our response to that is that the entire Anzac Street frontage essentially has been changed from its original, both in its material and in the actual materials that are used in the building itself. And of course, in the veranda. So the wooden veranda was completely removed and replaced with concrete. The turned posts, completely removed, replaced with metal. The Federation-style turn post, that is. We've installed metal balustrades. We've installed a disability accessibility ramp. These changes alone simply cannot be described as a high degree of authenticity. Where it was wood, it's now metal. Where it was wood, it's now concrete. That's not authentic to the Federation-style bungalow house. Castellarizian House is also described as one of the few remaining grand villas in Mount Hawthorn. Importantly, this means it is a key or rare representative of its type. First of all, while we're flattered, we don't think that a grand villa is quite how we would describe our clubhouse. Secondly, it's certainly not one of the few remaining or rare examples of a Federation bungalow in Mount Hawthorn. We do not believe that it is a key or rare representative of its type. We do not believe it's representative of a level 2, category 2 listing. Councillors, this decision will have a significant impact on the Castellarisian Association and our future plans. We plan to install a disability accessible toilet. We plan to extend our veranda so there's more space for our older members on the veranda without the hazard trips of hazard. We've planned for another shade sale. We plan for more solar panels. These are all things that may be impacted by heritage listing. And while administration claims that we can still do these things, ultimately, as a small club run by volunteers, the impact of heritage listing is that the administrative and financial burden renders these projects impossible. A development application or a development approval for things such as solar panels or disability accessible toilets will now require advice from the development and design team, the building services team, the Heritage Council of WA. In order to complete a heritage assessment, we need to complete a heritage impact assessment, we need to refer an application to the design review panel, we need to submit a development application as usual, and then it will seek council approval. All these things to install solar panels. Members, from an organisation run on volunteers, that is impossible. We can hardly get anyone to write a grant application, let alone go through all of these steps for a disability accessible toilet. And unfortunately, not only will that stop these projects from going ahead, then of course there's the financial burden of a heritage architect for some of these works. And we were told last week a heritage architect may not be required, but we know that there are some works where they will be required. And we know that that's going to add $20,000, $40,000, $50,000 onto some of these projects. Now, last week from administration, we heard you got a $5,000 development application fund. Unfortunately, members, that doesn't touch the sides. So there's an administrative burden that will stop these projects. There's a financial burden from a heritage architect. And the great irony is that our plans are to make this more community friendly, more social use of the venue, which is the actual reason that administration's put this up to begin with. And so for us, members, I say to you that we are good custodians of this house. You heard in my briefing last week, we've got the signage out the front to recognise the heritage. You know that we've done developments that have maintained the key elements of heritage of the building. The building does not have a high degree of authenticity. The heritage listing will stifle future projects. We are long-standing custodians of this house that have demonstrated our commitment to its heritage and to the community. We do not need greater protections because this property is not at risk. We respect its history. We will maintain its facade. We will maintain its keeping in theme with the community, with the streets around it. We ask council to trust us with this property and trust us with its social history. We do not need additional heritage listing category. We will protect this house.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to move to the confirmation of minutes. The proposal is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 21st of July 2026 be confirmed. Do I have a mover for that? Moved Councillor Wolfe, seconded by Councillor Greer. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. So I do have a couple of announcements that I wanted to make. Councillors, today is Vietnam Veterans Day and the 60th anniversary of the Battle of Long Tan. And I'm very pleased that the City of Vincent this morning hosted, along with the Mount Hawthorn RSL, a morning tea for Vietnam veterans here in the chambers. I was also very pleased that we were joined by representatives of the Highgate RSL. We have done a lot to try to recognise the service of veterans over the past few years. Anzac Day, of course, continues to grow, and that is something that has been done for many years. And we have, of course, got the Poppy project, which is ensuring that Remembrance Day every year is being recognised. But in addition to that, we have done a really good job recognising the service of veterans from World War I and World War II. But we have got veterans who are living in the City of Vincent now who have served. So it is important that we do acknowledge the service of those people, and also acknowledge that as members of the community, that they deserve special. They deserve special acknowledgement for what they have done in war. we not only have veterans from Vietnam, but we've obviously veterans from other subsequent wars and peacekeeping missions. It is important that we as a community recognise what they have done and acknowledge their service, lest we forget. Councillors, the other thing that's coming up is, of course, we have Thursday Daffodil Day. And Daffodil Day is the Cancer Council's iconic annual fundraising campaign, and it is about uniting communities to raise money for life-saving cancer research. And it gives us an opportunity to remember those people who have lost their lives to cancer, and to also continue to support Australians who are impacted by the disease. We have had our own experience of this internally within the council this year, with Councillor Suzanne Warner being diagnosed with breast cancer earlier on in the year, which was a great shock and, of course, of great concern to all of us. I'm really pleased that Councillor Warner has successfully received treatment for the breast cancer. It is, of course, an ongoing issue, but Councillor Warner, we are so pleased that you have made it this far through the journey and that you are on the path to complete healing. Recognising that it is not simply just within our council, but many people within our community at the moment we know are dealing with cancer and the effects of cancer, and also live with the legacy of the loss of loved ones from cancer. The bright yellow daffodil, which we have got around us, and is the international symbol of hope. And the important thing to note is that when Daffodil Day started 40 years ago, back in 1986, the 5 years cancer survival was approximately 46%. But now, because of the sort of research that has occurred, because of the community fundraising which has occurred, survival is now at 72%. So this is going in the right direction. So it is an important opportunity for us to highlight hope within the community for those people who have experienced loss from cancer or who are living with cancer, and it's an opportunity for us to improve on the outcomes for those people who will receive this diagnosis. We have come a long way in that time, and we hope that the next 40 years of cancer research will see everyone who becomes diagnosed with cancer surviving their diagnosis and ensuring that they have treatment plans that are going to be appropriate for them. I think it's possible. I know that's what everyone's working towards, and we here at the City of Vincent can play a part to try to encourage people to be part of those efforts towards healing as well. Okay, I'm going to move to declarations of interest. CEO, I understand you've received declarations. Could you please advise what they are?
Thank you, Mayor Zaman. Through you, declarations of interest for tonight are as follows. Councillor Wallace declared a financial interest in item 9.1 on the adoption of the heritage list, noting that Councillor Wallace has a house which is on the heritage list. He is not seeking approval to participate in the debate, nor to remain in the chambers, nor to vote on the matter. Councillor Poulos declared a financial interest in relation to item 11.2, authorisation of expenditure, noting that his company was paid to undertake line marking on one of the city's active sporting reserves. He is not seeking approval to participate in the debate, nor to remain in the chamber, nor to vote on the matter. And Mayor Zaman, I'll declare a financial interest in relation to item 7.1, which is the annual CEO performance review and key KPIs for next financial year. I was obviously involved in the process, but that report was prepared or overseen by the Mayor as chair of the CEO Performance Review Panel, and the report was prepared with assistance from governance. That's all that I've received.
Are there any other conflicts of interest which any councillor wishes to declare? Okay, so moving on. So items which are the subject of a question, comment or deputation, we have of course got 9.1, which we will be dealing with. We have got Okay, and we've also got 12.2. And we've got an absolute majority decision, which is 9.2 and 17.1. Okay, we have the ones where financial interest have been declared, which have already been announced by the CEO. In addition to that, Councillor Warner, do you have any items?
9.4.
Councillor Wallace?
It was just 9.2 for me, thanks.
Councillor Lafontaine? Councillor Greer?
Nothing further, thank you.
Councillor Castle?
9.3, please.
Councillor Whedon?
Nothing further.
Councillor Wolfe?
13.1, please.
Councillor Poulios?
In addition to that one, 10.1 if it hasn't been added.
Okay, mine have been covered off. Okay, I'll just work out which matters can now be passed on block. Governance Manager, could you please advise which items are proposed to be moved on block?
The following items are proposed to be moved on block 11.1, 11.3, 12.1, 12.3, 12.4, 12.5.
Okay, do I have a mover for that? That's moved Councillor Castle, seconded Councillor Wolfe. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Poulios, did you vote then in favour? Yes, you are. You're allowed to vote. You're allowed to vote because we've pulled out 11.2. Okay, so can I ask again? Is all those in favour? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I'm going to move to 9.1, outcome of advertising and adoption of heritage list. Do I have a mover for this? Oh, sorry, Councillor Wallace is, of course, got a financial interest and will be removing himself. Do I have a mover for this item? Moved by Councillor Wolfe. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Poulios. Councillor Wolfe.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the significant amount of work that's been undertaken by administration on this review. Heritage is certainly not straightforward, and balancing history, community expectations, planning principles and property rights is complex work. I'd also like to thank the many community members and organisations who took the time to participate in the consultation process and help to inform a more robust discussion. The review raised a number of interesting questions that we've grappled with as a council over recent months, including through workshops and briefings. In particular, it's prompted important discussions around how we manage the interaction between social heritage values and physical heritage values, and how we continue to recognise and value places that have evolved and changed over time. Broadly, I'm supportive of the work that's been undertaken and the recommendations before us, noting that we do have amendments on the table. On Castellarisian House in particular, I wanted to thank the Castellarisian Association for the kind invitation for the site visit and for your participation at our briefings and meetings. It's been a really valuable opportunity to learn more about the association and what the future plans are for the site. I suspect we will be discussing Castellarisian House in more detail this evening, looking at the amendments on the table, so for now I'll reserve my comments at this stage. I did want to also touch briefly on some commentary that we've seen online and on social media regarding heritage in Vincent. There's often a real frustration when older buildings are substantially amended, altered or removed, and that frustration is often shared by many of us on council. because we too care very much deeply about the character of our neighbourhoods, and we're understandably disappointed, as others are, when buildings that we value are lost. However, there's sometimes a perception that local government has powers that it simply does not have. Laws exist, and planning and heritage decisions operate within legislative frameworks, and there are strict limits as to what council can control in relation to private property. Some of the commentary that we've seen has been pure rage baiting, and it even led to one resident asking me last night whether or not at Vincent we would consider introducing a heritage framework, which was extremely disappointing. So I think we should, of course, always strive to identify, celebrate and protect places of heritage significance when we can, but that requires a shared effort between government, property owners and the community. In terms of the body of work that we've got in front of us, I'm really confident that it reflects what we believe in terms of heritage, the need to protect heritage and the celebration of heritage that we can achieve in Vincent in the future.
Councillor Poulios.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm generally supportive of recognising and protecting places of genuine heritage significance and acknowledge the significant work that's been undertaken as part of the heritage review process. The report makes it clear that inclusion on the heritage list does not prevent redevelopment or alterations, but ensures heritage values are considered through the planning process. I've got some concerns regarding the practical implications for active community organisations, particularly the Castellar Region House, which is proposed for inclusion on the heritage list. As someone who's volunteered in local clubs for most of my life, I understand the burden this will place on local clubs like the Cassie Club. While I understand and appreciate the heritage significance of the building, I'd like to ensure that any heritage protections applied do not unintentionally create barriers for the Castellar Region Club, should it wish to undertake future renovations, upgrades or redevelopment necessary to meet the evolving needs of its members and the wider community. My concern is not with recognising the significance of the site, rather is ensuring that the heritage listing does not create unnecessary cost, delays or administrative burdens for a community organisation seeking to modernise and remain relevant. And that's all for now.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Councillor Whedon.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a great document. Thank you. I think I've got some thoughts on Castellar House, but I'll probably park those for the time being. I think my concerns are, within the framework, we obviously can't take into account a number of things such as resale values, and that really limits what we're able to do. But I think my concern is moving forward as we work and put private homes on this list, if owners are against it, potentially are we just being stuck with the owners who haven't been able to knock that house down already? Is it people who don't have means? Is it going to negatively impact those in our community who can't afford to renovate their house, can't afford to knock it down? And we're going to have this cascading effect of the only heritage buildings left are the ones that haven't had the funds to develop and change. And that's my concern moving forward, is just we need to really consider that yes, while there's heritage value, there is that potential rolling impact that not everyone can afford to knock their house down, renovate it in such a way that it would not be on the heritage list. Then there's also the fact that density, very important, but that's it.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item at this point? Councillor Castle. And I know, Councillor Castle, you also have an amendment that you on the table.
I do. Yes, I think probably just briefly, I'm in support of the officer recommendation generally as it exists, and in, I suppose, more broadly in supportive of the concept of heritage. I think it is something that there are certainly some personal implications for people who own properties on this list. Some of those are willingly and joyously celebrated, and others are less enthusiastic about their inclusion. But I think when we look at the concept of heritage, part of the point is stepping beyond and above the individual. It is about protecting what our community tells us is valuable to them. So I am certainly in support of heritage being an important priority for the city, and absolutely echo the thoughts about the extensive amount of work that's gone into this. We have already know that we have a lot of heritage in Vincent. This recognises that there are many more places that warrant that. And I also appreciate that there is a flexible approach to when places should be removed from the list, so that there's not an expectation that once you're on, you're always on, that things can change. But this is a way to try and preserve what could so easily be lost, and what we know that when it is lost, that our community cries out in shame that has happened. So I think that it is important that we continue to do what we can to help preserve these beautiful examples of our history. You know, being in a city, there's quite a lot of very interesting history in our area. So I think that's important. Having said that, I absolutely acknowledge that for an individual, for an owner of a residential property, for a club that owns a property that's proposed to be included, there is a significant concern about what this means for them going forward. I absolutely acknowledge the concerns that have been raised tonight and through our site visits, and through the various presentations to council about what this might mean for Kazi House in particular. And I think that's where I have sought to see if there's some more we could do to provide for a community group when they have this particular extra requirement for the changes that they might like to make. That's the purpose of my very appropriately coloured yellow.
So this is the ecru coloured.
Ecru,
The ecru coloured.
which I will note is a shade of yellow.
Which is a shade of yellow, which is of course part of Daffodil Day. So ecru in front of you. And
so I have thanks also to Councillor Wolfe, who helped me with some of with a lot of the wording on this, and to Mitch today. If I would like to move this amendment, which basically adds 2 new clauses to the recommendation.
I'll just see if I can get a seconder for that first, if that's okay. So
you don't need me to read them out.
So you're moving this. I'm going to get a seconder next, and then you can speak to it.
Okay.
Okay. So we have in front of us the ecru coloured amendment by Councillor Castle, seconded by Councillor Wolfe. Councillor Castle, do you wish to read out the amendment and speak to it?
Sure. So the amendment seeks to add 2 new clauses. One, to note the importance of adaptive reuse to support the ongoing use and conservation of heritage places, and requests administration to investigate opportunities to provide further support to community groups who are owners of heritage places to facilitate this through the upcoming Heritage Strategic Plan review. And 5, to request administration continues to work collaboratively with owners of heritage places, particularly community groups, regarding future accessibility, community use and building improvement proposals while conserving their identified heritage values. So the purpose of this amendment is to acknowledge some of these concerns and the potential for extra burden on a community group in particular. I think what we've talked about this week and last week is that there are a number of examples where an application to make changes or development to a place that's on the heritage list may not involve very much extra burden. It may not involve the engagement of a heritage architect. It could involve filling in the template heritage impact statement. I note that in both the statement of significance and in the record of place, there is some detail about what is considered the important features for a particular property, and so that gives some guidance as to where changes made to other elements of the property might be a fairly smooth run. But what I'm trying to do here with this amendment is to strengthen that, to make sure that it's clear that administration will be, in the particular case of community groups where you have limited income and relying on volunteer time, that we can offer support through the process, and also to investigate further opportunities for financial support. So we do have a Heritage Assistance fund, which is limited in the amount of money that can be provided and also in the scope. But we also have our Heritage Strategic Plan coming up for review, and there are other community grants that may be available. So I'm really trying to dig a bit deeper into what other support could be offered to people who would like to make just run-of-the-mill changes to get through this process without an extra burden.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the importance of the adaptive reuse in conserving heritage places, it just can't be understated. And for me, that's particularly the case when you're talking about ensuring that social heritage value is ongoing. We've seen in other examples that have come to council what happens when heritage buildings are unable to adapt, or if they're not maintained well over time. And it's not always desirable, it's not always practical for a building to remain exactly as it was, particularly when we're talking about accessibility or other improvements that can support its ongoing use. I've been particularly persuaded in these discussions around the impact of heritage obligations on community organisations, particularly when we are talking about volunteer-run organisations with limited budget and limited capacity. I think it's difficult to get volunteers and to get volunteers to donate their time, and I imagine that those volunteers would much rather be putting their time and energy into the core business of that community club rather than navigating complex heritage processes and paperwork. So I'm very keen to see the collaborative approach that administration has taken with owners and occupiers of heritage places to continue, and to give this consideration to ensure that we are supporting community organisations particularly to use their limited resources to care for places with heritage significance.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this amendment? Councillor Castle, do you wish to say anything in conclusion? I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. So now we are now working to the amended proposal in front of us. Now, is there anyone who wishes to speak further to this motion? I'd like to say something then, if that's okay. The heritage policies are always really difficult to navigate through local government, and I'm reminded of the recent election campaign and some of the one of the campaigns of Count Binface, who made the promise to all his constituents that he would reduce your taxes and raise everybody else's. And this is a little bit how heritage seems to be approached in particularly the city of Vincent. Everybody wants to see everybody else's property subject to heritage, but nobody wants their own place to be subject to heritage. And that is the tricky issue that councils are faced with. And in addition to the fact, as Councillor Wolf has rightly pointed out, councils have very limited authority in terms of ensuring that heritage values are maintained. We have, of course, the ongoing challenge of what do you do if you have a heritage listed property that has been neglected and is now a squat or potentially a public health hazard. We have seen issues of demolition by neglect and the response to that. We do have the ongoing challenges of density. What do we do if you have a 3-bedroom house of heritage value in the middle of a very, very large property that is in the middle of the city that could accommodate an enormous number of dwellings for humans to be able to live in? So it does raise very particular challenges. But one of the issues that I suppose that I am still grappling with is the issue of having sites on the heritage list because of their social significance. It's much more obvious if we are talking about the built form. When you have got built form that you want to protect, you can actually look at it, you can identify it, you can bring heritage architects in to say, well, this is how we might be able to protect it, or there is no way that this particular development can proceed and still maintain those values, those built form values that we want to ensure are maintained. But social significance is far more, it is far less clear in terms of its correlation, particularly with a development application, unless you're talking about a straight out demolition. So I am yet to see how do we ensure that those many, many sites around the city of Vincent which are of social significance, either because the role they have played in building community or because they have been in some way associated with significant individuals within the life of the city of Vincent since colonisation, how is that actually captured and recorded and celebrated, but at the same time not putting in place unrealistic or not particularly helpful bureaucratic burdens in terms of being able to ensure that buildings are also still going to be able to be used and valued. I have got in front of you, I have requested, but I am not allowed to move, on the tangerine sheet in front of you, an amendment which I have proposed in relation to Castellarizian House, which does have components of the built form in terms of the two front rooms, which are exquisite and have been beautifully maintained, and I understand are also very much valued by the Castellarizian Association. That well and truly has, I think, heritage value, but otherwise has really been identified as primarily having significant social value. The proposal is suggesting that the schedule that it be moved from being a level 2, where is it, on the heritage list, down to a level 3, which actually reduces the burden far more, but also ensures that the reasons it ended up on the heritage list in the first place are going to still be maintained. So it would go down to a management category 3, and that in conjunction with the two proposals that we have just unanimously passed would, I believe, address the concerns that have been expressed consistently by representatives from the Castellarizian Association, at the same time that we continue to cherish and value the role that building and indeed that association plays within the life of the city of Vincent and our community. So I am hoping that maybe Council will consider that particular amendment, although I do absolutely recognise that the amendments that have been proposed and passed by Councillor Castle and Councillor Wolfe will actually go quite some way to addressing the concerns that have been raised as well. So that is on that note, I'm hoping that someone may wish to take on the amendment. Councillor Warner.
Thank you. Well, I'll take the lead on this, and I would propose to move the amendment on the, I'm going to say tangerine, sorry, not orange, tangerine.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded, Councillor Wolfe. Councillor Warner.
Sadly, I was unable to attend the Castellarizian. It's much easier to say Cassie House. I'm sorry. The visit, I was away for a very good reason. Yes, but I have been really impressed with the way that the representatives have continued to communicate with us and what they've been able to put through. And I've had some reservations about the impact of what the proposed heritage listing would do to them. So for the reasons beautifully written on this tangerine piece of paper, I would like to propose that we move the Cassie House listing from a 2 to a 3 category. If anyone else would like to talk.
Councillor Wolf, you seconded the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be supporting the amendment. I definitely agree Cassie House has heritage significance, and we should continue to recognise it for its contribution to history and for community life in Vincent. But ultimately, that distinction between the Category 2 and Category 3 is a matter of judgment about that level of significance. We've heard about how the building has changed over time, including alterations and additions that have occurred throughout its life. And as we've just discussed now, that significance has been principally associated with its history and its social significance. So considering all of that, I do consider Category 3 to be a more appropriate classification.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this amendment? Councillor Whedon.
Yep, I'm fully supportive of this amendment. I believe the social fabric of the Castellaritsian society should be preserved and acknowledged. However, the building isn't actually that fabric. The building is usurped by the value of the society's input into the community. And while I'm sure the original occupier was a wondrous fellow, he also made lots of impact to the community. I think the impact we've seen from the Castellaritsian society in recent years and its context in modern multicultural Australia is the true value of that site. And more importantly, its live, living heritage is what is worthy of protecting, and that protecting is through ensuring we don't place undue burdens on this group.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Castle.
Thank you. Before I speak to it, I have a question, and it's just a procedural question. The amendment seeks to recategorise from Category 2 to Category 3. However, I don't believe we've actually categorised it as Category 2 yet. So, is it correct, or should the amendment read...
So can I just confirm, we are actually going through the process of accepting the categories as they have been presented tonight, and what this is doing is changing that proposal.
But if the initial part of the amendment which deletes Castellaritsian House from clause 1.1 as adopting the addition, then they're not on the list if that is removed. I mean, what I would propose is to achieve the desired outcome of this amendment, should the actual amendment be to the attachment? I'm sorry, that's very technical at this late stage. Just so that because I understand what is trying to be achieved, and I think that recording as a recategorisation wouldn't actually be correct.
Through you, Mayor Zamon, I suppose the Heritage Review has been through a fairly lengthy review and over a fairly lengthy amount of time. In December last year, Council approved the Local Heritage Survey, and that identified a number of new properties which weren't previously recorded on a heritage list, and one of them was the Castellaritsian House. And so through that process of adopting the Local Heritage Survey, that identified it through that as a management Category 2. The next step which we then did was to take the new places that had been identified and added to the Local Heritage Survey, and we consulted on whether they should be added to the heritage list itself. So I suppose as it stands, Castellaritsian House is on the Local Heritage Survey as a management Category 2. What's before Council tonight is to consider whether it should be added to the heritage list. Based on the amendment, our suggestion would be, if Council's view is that the level of significance through the debate doesn't equate to a Category 2, procedurally it should be dropped to a Category 3 on the Local Heritage Survey, and then not added to the heritage list. So 1.1 confirms that it won't be added to the heritage list, and then 2 and the third dot point of 2 confirms that it would be recategorised on the local heritage survey.
Thank you. That makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that. In terms of this amendment, I'm in two minds. I think that I absolutely understand the concerns that have been raised. I think there's a matter of opinion either way whether you would consider this category 2 or category 3. I suppose what I'm swayed by tonight is hearing from my fellow councillors and also from the presenters about the changes that have been made to the property. I would like to think that we can explore the question of social heritage in more detail in coming years and months, because it's definitely something that has been very tricky for council to get their head around. I, for example, wonder what happens to the social heritage of the Kazi Association if they chose to move to a different location. How would we determine that? So I think at this stage I'm happy to support this amendment, but I think we need to dig into this more and really understand, because there's plenty of examples around the world where a place is heritage listed because of the activity that occurred there, not simply because of the built form. So I accept that is definitely something that we should try and capture and preserve, but it's just understanding how best to do that. So,
does anyone else wish to speak on this amendment? Okay, so I've obviously, thank you very much, Councillor Warner, for picking up the amendment, and I know this has been a source of discussion amongst councillors in the lead up to this as well, in terms of how to grapple with this issue of social heritage. I suppose, and I welcome future unpicking of what that means, and note that in other countries in particular, it's quite commonplace to see plaques outside of buildings acknowledging significant things that have occurred in those places, or significant people that have resided in those places, and perhaps that's something that we can start leaning into in future if we're trying to move beyond simply preserving the built form, but also acknowledging the history of many of the buildings around us. I need to be really clear that I would not be persuaded of the need to bump down a building off the heritage list if it had a particular built form value, even if it was owned by a charity or an NGO. I think, for example, of that amazing building on the corner of Bulwer and Lord Street, if you can think of that. It's currently being used as offices. If that building was currently being run by the Castellarian Association, and I was told to take it off the heritage list, I'd be saying no. It's got nothing to do with, I'm sorry, but it's an amazing, amazing building that deserves to be heritage listed and protected, and as I understand it is in some way, which is really, really good. In this instance, it's about the fact that the Castellarian Association has played and continues to play such a prominent social role in our community, and even though the actual built form of the building has very little heritage value, to be honest, that somehow that warrants putting it on the list, and I just struggle with that and that correlation between development applications and the nature of the building itself, which is why it's worthwhile really unpicking what social heritage means and how we best want to acknowledge that, and where does that actually fit within the planning scheme and those sorts of things. So I think that I really appreciate the changes that have been made to the Castellarian House to date. It's a highly utilised social building. The commercial kitchen is extraordinary. I'm really pleased that it's got such good disability access, and that's continuing. And it's able to host a number of quite large events for what is actually quite a small footprint. So, and that's only happened because there have been so many changes to the built form. Having said that, I certainly urge the Castellarian Association to continue to cherish that front part of the house, which is really pretty and deserves to be protected, because it certainly makes for a beautiful entrance point, and I think it is worthy protecting that part. I understand the ceilings even still have horsehair in them, so it really is quite significant. So I will be supporting this amendment, obviously. Anyone else want to speak on the amendment? Councillor Warner, do you want to say anything in conclusion? Okay, I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? Okay, carried. Thank you. Okay, so now I move back to the substantive amended motion. It's got 2 amendments to it. Does anyone wish to speak on this who has not spoken? Okay, so Councillor Wolf, do you wish to say anything in conclusion? I'm going to put the amended motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, can someone please advise Councillor Wallace that he's able to come back into the chambers? Okay, so now I'm going to move on to item 9.2, which is the proposed expansion of the public EV charging infrastructure in Vincent. And I note that an absolute majority decision is required for this. Okay, so that, oh no, sorry, I meant to go into, oh no, that can, oh we were, no. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to go to 9.2. Can I please ask if there is a mover for this item? Moved, Councillor Wallace. Seconded, Councillor Castle. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Ms. Amon. Yeah, broadly pretty supportive of the intent of this. I think this traces back to when you first moved a motion back in November 2024, asking for some progress on EV charging around the city. So kind of quite happy to have this come forward in this state now. I think, and acknowledging this did come to workshop a couple of months ago, and that's also a good forum for giving feedback. Having said that, so I think what this EOI process sets us up for is a full privatisation of EV charging across city-owned areas. You know, the city would lease the land, and if there's a successful applicant, they'd install and maintain the chargers and receive all revenue from that. I think if we were to appoint a single provider that have somewhat of a monopoly over charging infrastructure in Vincent in public areas, we get a small sum for the lease fee, set according to the value of the parking bay, not the commercial potential, and the provider would control the price and receive all the revenue. The majority of the users for the chargers, I think, would be Vincent residents, and I'm somewhat cautious about the potential for the operator to set prices within such a market. So I think there's risk that the service won't be provided at an appropriate price to our residents, and I think there's also a risk that the city's potentially missing out on a large ongoing revenue stream. I think I'm willing to engage with the full privatisation concept where it's demonstrated that there are benefits to doing that, and so the city providing a service, you know, that might be risk management or financial planning, something along those lines. But I think to understand those potential benefits, we need a fuller picture of what a city-run service could look like. I think the city does have experience and capability to self-perform to an extent. We already have a network of parking meters, and our Easy Pay app can act as a front end for EV chargers as well. We have some experience running our own chargers at BD Park. We've demonstrated through the underground power project that we can work with electricity providers to undertake large changes to the network in our area. And I think there's also a strong precedent or case study next door in the City of Perth, who've got a network of about 50 of their own chargers and are currently undergoing an upgrade process as well. Wolg has also done a bit of legwork and set up provide supplies for all of the services that are required to run your own. So I think all that makes it possible, and the city should investigate it further to see if it's feasible prior to awarding a contract to a private provider. So I got 2 amendments. Actually, I'll let others speak, and then I'll move some amendments. That's all right.
Okay. Does anyone else? Oh, so the seconder was, sorry, Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. Definitely broadly supportive of this motion, and certainly think that it is certainly timely for the city to be investigating and responding to a substantial increase in EV ownership, both in Vincent and in Australia, for all sorts of fairly obvious reasons. I think that not only does this address the notice of motion in relation to this particular topic, it also is very well aligned with our broad strategic goals around sustainability, and I think it is part of local government's role to try to facilitate this sort of infrastructure. I look forward to the conversation around the various amendments that have been proposed. I'm not sure I'm convinced about what the city's role should be different in this, but acknowledge that these are really proposing just to investigate that further. So anyway, I won't give my opinions on them just yet. So happy to talk to any amendments.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak at this point? Councillor Walls, do you want to move any of your amendments? I suspect that people are waiting to speak to the amendments. Yes, I'm seeing nods. So we've got Councillor Wallace, you've got one on a verdant colour and one on an orchid colour.
Verdant colour.
Oh no, unhelpful.
I think move the green one first as an appropriate thing to do, which I think largely just removes the proposed delegation to the CEO.
Okay, so we'll deal with the one on the verdant colour, the green. Okay, so before we talk to it, I'm going to get a seconder first. So it's moved by Councillor Wallace. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Greer. So Councillor Wallace, could you please advise what the amendment's doing and speak to it?
Sure. So I appreciate some feedback was given in the workshop around the urgency of this, and that's probably what's led to this arrangement where a reasonably significant delegation is proposed. But I think this is quite a large decision. It's got consequences for the kind of usability and a critical service that's getting provided to our community, and it's got relatively significant financial consequences as well. So on that basis, I'd be seeking council to have final decision at the end of the ERY process, and I think this amendment just removes that detail.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon, and thank you, Councillor Wallace, for bringing this forward. For me, it does feel like we're a bit behind the community expectation in terms of when it comes to expanding our EV charging stations, and I think people will be really pleased to see that we're here and talking about it. But I do think such a significant decision does require a little bit more time and a decision of the council to consider all of the options. I do think this process would allow us to really consider the preferred operational model and further discussion on the provider model as you've raised already tonight. So I'd be supporting that amendment.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this amendment? Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also supportive of this. I think it's appropriate given that we're, for the most part, embarking on new territory. We do have a small amount of EV chargers in the city. So I think that it's appropriate for council to be involved in this process at this point. I would note, though, that I would anticipate in the future that a delegation would be appropriate once there's sort of a more established model and council's had more time to discuss in detail.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this amendment? Councillor Wallace, do you wish to say anything in conclusion? Going to put the amendment. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Okay, so we are now back to the substantive amended motion. Does anyone wish to speak to the substantive amended motion or to move any further amendments at this point? Okay, Councillor Wallace, you have got another amendment, a dolphin coloured amendment in front of you, and you wish to no, it's not. Oh, it is. No, it's the orchid. Oh, Councillor Poulios has got the dolphin coloured. Okay, so Councillor Wallace, do you wish to speak? Do you wish to move this amendment?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Amon.
Okay, I'm just going to get a seconder for that first, and so it's seconded Councillor Greer. So Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Ms. Amon. This goes to what I spoke about a little bit. I think there's strong precedent around WA in Australia for local governments to provide this charging infrastructure themselves. City of Perth's gone ahead and done it. They've got a fairly significant network. Walga's done a lot of work as well to set up preferred suppliers and processes to kind of streamline this. And I think it's something that's within the city's capabilities. It could be an ongoing revenue stream, or we could choose to provide a cheaper option than private could potentially do to our residents. So I think not preempting a decision one way or another, but like a solid base case of what it looks like if we were to do it ourselves before we potentially award it to a private operator, I think is a good thing to have in hand.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zaman. I will also be supporting this amendment. I think our community would have expected us to rule in or rule out public ownership of these matters, and I feel like doing this process in the high-level business case with this information will enable us to make an informed decision. If the City of Perth have done that, I think people would expect us to make an informed decision as why we have or haven't. I think it would be great if we could, so thank you for putting forward the amendment.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, also supportive. I think it would be a good exercise for council to have this information to understand what's the best model going forward. As I said earlier, I'm not sure I'm convinced that that will be council owned and operated charging network, but we'll look forward to seeing what the report can tell us. One of the things I am concerned about is I'm aware there's already a number of competing networks, and so I think that this report will need to take into account what the impact is of adding another network, another app, another mechanism that people need to navigate to access various different charging options. But yeah, happy to see what the report pulls up.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Wolfe.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm supportive for all the reasons discussed already. Thank you, Councillor Wallace, for bringing this forward. I'm also persuaded by the fact that it's a high-level business case, and in administration's comment, it talks about the extensive investigations that have already been undertaken and that this wouldn't result in significant delays.
Okay. Is there any further speakers? Councillor Wallace, do you wish to say anything in conclusion? I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have any further speakers on the now amended motion, or any further amendments that anyone wishes to put? Okay, Councillor Poulios, are you wishing to speak? You're speaking on it and then moving the amendment? Okay.
Yeah, I've got some amendments. I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to read them all. Primarily, there's a few just things just to try and tighten up. I guess what the main thing that triggered this was when we saw the amount of revenue that we currently get from that car park in that one example at Chelmsford Avenue, or Chelmsford Road, sorry. I guess this is the main reasoning behind doing this is to protect the ratepayers and community's asset, which is the car park and the revenue that it generates. I probably felt that $1,500 might be a fair figure, but there's situations where we're generating more revenue from a car bay that if we lose that, it'd be in a high use situation. It'd be good for the community to at least get that figure back as revenue from the provider. That's part of it in the first bit there, and then I guess there's a few other amendments as well. Just trying to see, where's this one?
Can I just ask, Councillor
Wanna split
Poulios,
it up, or-
are you prepared to look at splitting up the various amendments so
Yeah,
that we
might be
can
easier.
discuss that
And then they're separate,
one time?
yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, in terms of the amendments that are in front of us, can I just ask Do you want to move your first amendment, which is amending the proposed license fee at 0.1?
Yep.
Do you wish to proceed with the moving
Yep.
that? Okay. So are all councillors clear on on which particular amendment only we're looking at, which is the amendment to 0.1? Okay. So I'm going to ask: I'll ask for a seconder for that first. Is there a seconder? That seconded Councillor Wallace. So, Councillor Poulios, do you want to speak specifically and solely at this point to that first amendment?
Thank you. Like I said before, I feel that figure of 1,500 isn't commensurate in this situation, in this specific situation. There might be other places that we can put EV charging that we can really discount the fee where it's not really getting used. But in this situation where we're earning, $104,000 or $105,000 a year from all those bays, which equates to $26.85 in the last financial year, I think that's a more reasonable assessment, and it safeguards the ratepayers and community.
Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, I'm strongly supportive of this. I'm somewhat sceptical about the idea of a market value kind of being set on the basis of it just being a car parking bay and not really considering the commercial potential of the bays. But having said that, I think raising it to this level is perfectly appropriate. EV got arena grants to put the infrastructure in. They've had a peppercorn lease with us to date. It's their second busiest site in WA. I don't think there's any marginal cost to them now to service these additional bays, so I think this is a perfectly reasonable ask of them from the city.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this amendment? Councillor Castle.
Thank you. May I have some questions? Just around the calculation of 2,685, am I right to say that was calculated by the revenue for the entire car park divided by the number of bays?
Through Mesmont, yes.
So I guess my question is, given that you've also said that it's 1 hour free and it's difficult to quantify lost revenue, is the 1 hour free across all those bays? Does it include the 15-minute bays? There's a few different options in that car park, aren't there?
Through Mesmont, yeah, there is a few different options, but I'm not across the specific intricacies there. I think the challenge that we do have is, which we flagged in the amendment, is where there is first hour free parking, but the average turnover is 41 minutes in the EV charging bay. So trying to attach a fee to the potential for lost revenue based on like a broader per bay averaging of the fee may not actually be fully reflective of the potential of those bays in question. But I suppose we don't have that level of detail to sort of be able to scratch further below the surface and provide those specific bays.
Thank you for that. I think on balance I don't support this. I took note of there was a number of emails that went back and forth today and the notes that are in the amendment. I think for me the two factors that are swaying my judgment are that this is already a renegotiation of the licence a year earlier than is required. But more importantly, that the figure that's attached to it acknowledges that there is a community benefit that is provided by allowing these charging bays to be installed, and I don't think it's a simple calculation of what is the lost revenue. I do definitely agree that we need to be careful when foregoing or allocating council funds, but I think in this case I think that it is appropriate for there to be some level of negotiation and discount, given that it is providing a service for the community.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this amendment? Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zaman. I just wanted to start with a question and understand the administration's comments. We've got, if council is supportive of the increased amended licensing fee, EV networks would ultimately need to agree to the amended terms. Can you just step us through the process from here, and if they were to say no to the increased amount per annum, what would happen?
Through you, Mayor Zaman, so the decision before council tonight is to approve giving public notice and inviting submissions on that amended licence fee. And then following that, it would be delegated to the Chief Executive Officer to consider the submissions and negotiate and finalise the terms of the amended licence agreement. I suppose in that process, if the operator were unsatisfied with the increased fee, they wouldn't finalise and sign off on the licence agreement, which would leave us in probably the same situation we are now, where they, in theory, are able to operate tomorrow those additional 2 bays with the chargers on site, but those bays haven't been licensed. So I suppose we'll be back to council with another report to explain where we're at the moment and to reconsider licence fees based on what we hear through that process.
No, thank you so much for providing that clarity. I think on balance, I am supportive of the amendment. I think it is quite a small increase, from 1,500 to 2,685. I think it's not wildly significant, and I think it is in the best interest of people to increase that licensing fee a small amount. We're not talking heaps and heaps, which makes it no longer of community benefit, but I think it strikes the right balance.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this? Okay, Councillor Poulios, do you wish to say anything in conclusion? Okay, so I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? All those against? Okay, noting that Councillor Whedon and Councillor Castle are against. Okay, so Councillor Poulios, did you want to continue? Oh, that's carried. Sorry, Councillor Poulios, do you wish to continue with your amendments?
Yep. So the second one was sort of related to that first one.
Sorry, can you just wait one moment?
Yep.
I'm just consulting with the governance manager.
What have we deleted?
All right. Yes. So that's right. So we've actually already deleted all the other provisions. We don't need to proceed with those ones.
Okay. Yep. All right. So that's it. Cool.
So that's done. All right. But having said that, Councillor Poulios, did you still wish to speak to the substantive proposal? Substantive now amended proposal.
Yeah, I'll mention a few things that I'm thinking about of all of this. I think we have to look outside the square when we're looking at future EV sites. The landscape's really changing. It's with AI and with emerging technologies from China and other places. There's things like wireless, like we charge our wireless tablets and phones. That's emerging for vehicles as well. So I guess we've got to we're in a fast-moving space that we don't want to lock ourselves into any one sort of technology. If it's going to be made redundant in the future, that's a consideration. And another consideration is we could probably use, maybe look at sites near where we've got Western Power substations to minimise the cost of the connection, because they're high voltage powers. A lot of the DC and it's an AC charger or a DC charger, or the East Perth power station. There's a substation near there as well. So yeah, not for long, but yeah, the train station has one as well. So whether we tap into there, so just being creative with where we sort of come up with these places. So yeah, that's what I'd like to sort of say.
I want to make some comments. I'm very comfortable with where we've landed as the amended motion on this. Firstly, there has been a lot of work that's been done to try to advance the various ways in which we can improve EV charging for people who do have electrical vehicles within the City of Vincent and who also come through the City of Vincent. I'm happy to say that a lot of the advocacy that we've done with the Minister for Energy around wanting to change the regulations to ensure that we can seek the installation of private conduits from homes through to the verges is progressing and progressing positively to bring us in line with other states. That, of course, will be subject to the parliamentary agenda and priority, and so I'm not going to hold my breath for that. But at the very least, the discussions have been warmly received and is going in the right direction. So that's a positive start, particularly for those residents within our streets that don't have any off-street opportunities to be able to charge, because we do see going around Vincent that people are getting extension cords from their houses and putting them out to their cars. Not great for pedestrian access or safety or electrical safety. So yes, certainly we should be trying to discourage that at every opportunity. I'm also very pleased with the work that has been progressed, particularly by the CEO through the Perth Inner City Group, working on the trials to see if we can have more on the street charging options connected to power poles, those sorts of things as well. So that particular piece of work through the Perth Inner City Group is progressing, and I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to see some really positive outcomes of that soon. And so I do also really appreciate the fact that administration is also seeking to ensure that we've got these fast chargers, more of them within the City of Vincent. They are in great demand. I note with the Chelmsford ones, they are always being used, but also one of the big pluses of having them at Chelmsford has been the local coffee shops love them, because it's just enough time for people to turn up, to plug their cars in, go grab a coffee, and then come back and take the car off. And so that has been very popularly received from those local coffee shops as a way to bring in a steady stream of customers as people are seeking to recharge their vehicles. It is really important that we continue this work. Ultimately, though, we do want to try to ensure that as many people who live in the inner city can have fewer private vehicles as possible, but I suppose if they are going to have a private vehicle, you want it to be electrically charged, or a tiny truck or a mini. So these are the sorts of cars which are really the preferred types of vehicles for people who live in the inner city. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Okay, and in conclusion, Councillor Willis? Okay, I'm going to put the amended proposal. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm now going to move on to 9.3, which is the outcome of the WAPC decision and modifications to local planning policy built form. Do we have a mover? Councillor Castle. Do we have a seconder to this? That would be Councillor Poulios. Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. Begrudgingly, I'm supportive of the officer recommendation, mainly because we don't have much other choice. As I expressed last week, I just find this whole situation extremely disappointing and frustrating. I think it is an example of the challenges that local government is facing when trying to work within the state government planning framework, and that sort of inherent tension between what a local government is trying to achieve and what is acceptable within to the state government. So that is the system that we work in, but it is certainly very frustrating to be trying to progress reviews of our policies and various other frameworks, and to have to navigate the system that is very long and drawn out and leads to, I think I talked about it last week, being in the hamster wheel. It's a cycle that we're caught in where we are trying to progress a change. We're being told that we need to wait, and then now we need to wait again because there's another change coming at the state government. It just makes it very difficult for local governments to maintain a responsive and current and nimble policy when the whole process takes years and years. So I'm feeling very frustrated by it. I'm particularly concerned in relation to the landscaping requirements that have been knocked back. This is something that there's no question that it is a priority for council and that it's a priority for our community, and not just for the Vincent community. This is something that people all over the state are talking about, and all local governments are trying to find ways to address the loss of tree canopy, to ensure that new developments have adequate landscaping so that we're not facing a concrete jungle in the very near future. I have to say, I'm not yet convinced that what the state government has already discussed is achieving the outcomes that we would like to see. We will see what the new review of the R codes brings, but I think that the reason you see a lot of local governments trying to push the boundaries in various different ways is because they're not satisfied with what is being proposed in general. And I suppose for me the biggest frustration is that the built form policy is a way for the local government to reflect what our community tells us that they want to see in development. And if it is constantly being reduced to a statewide set of criteria, there is less and less opportunity for local context to be recognised in our planning framework, and that I think is something that as a councillor I find very difficult, but I think also what our community tells us is not what they want. They want Vincent to look different to Joondalup, to Mandurah, to Esperance, to Kalgoorlie, and one size does not fit all. So I'm very supportive of our administration looking for whatever ways they can for us to work within the framework that we have to try and achieve the outcomes that our community wants. Acknowledging that this is the ecosystem that we work in, but look forward to lots of really new and innovative ideas to try and address some of these concerns.
Councillor Poulios.
Yeah, I'd echo those statements by Councillor Castle. It's really frustrating. A lot of time and effort goes into all these submissions, and then it's all for sort of naught. So yeah, it's really frustrating, and yeah, just ended on that.
I also want to echo the frustrations, not least of which because the community doesn't understand that it's not the council that's actually making these decisions. These decisions are being made by the WAPC. I'm, get exhausted seeing all caps, shouting on social media particularly by rage baiting people who will say we're not doing enough to ensure that there are enough trees going into new developments, for example, when it's out of our hands, when people are unhappy about the lack of setback, when it's out of our hands, when we're trying to put in beautiful built form, trying to make sure that we are doing inner city high density dwelling well, and we are being treated as though we are the same as everywhere else. It is out of our hands, but the community doesn't understand that. They just think it's the City of Vincent not listening, when it's the exact opposite. So thank you very much to the administration for the good work you did, that you presented to the WAPC. It was thoughtful. It was reflective of what we expected as a council and representing our community. I am disappointed that that position was not shared or understood by the WAPC. So I look forward to getting more abusive emails about this. Anyone else wish to speak on this? Councillor Castle, do you want to say anything in conclusion? I'm going to put this, all those in favour. Okay, carried. Thank you very much. So I'll move on to 9.4, Leaderville Public Artwork. Do I have a mover for this? Move Councillor Warner, seconded by Councillor Greer. Councillor Warner.
Thank you. Look, not much to say on this except that I strongly support the recommendation to retain nuanced encounters permanently in its current location in the Oxford Street Laneway. This is a wonderful example of public art that has brought beauty, character and a sense of whimsy to the space, and it also creates a distinctive entry to the laneway. after the many unforeseen issues that this project has faced, I'm very pleased that the artwork has found a location where it works so well and has been positively received by the community. I'll be glad to see those hurdles finally behind us and this project brought to a successful close and Nuanced Encounters given a permanent home here in Leederville.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon. I just wanted to say thank you for providing the information on the proposed seating in the briefing notes. That was enough information. I don't think it can be said any better than Councillor Warner has just said it, so I'll be supporting the proposal.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Warner, anything in conclusion? Okay, I'm going to put the proposal. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. So we move on to 10.1, North Perth Cricket Club Turf Wicket Agreement, Charles Berriard Reserve. Do I have a mover for this? Councillor Poulios. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Wolfe. Councillor Poulios.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm supportive of this agreement, and I recognise the valuable contribution that the North Perth Cricket Club makes to the community sport within Vincent. I guess I'm fully supportive, but I think in the long term, there's a few things. There's 22 turf wickets, and the cost of, I guess, in the long run, not now, but you can see where a lot of the pressures are coming with water budgets, the resource that the city has to provide. Maybe down the track, we might have to consider that some of those training wickets turn into AstroTurf wickets if that becomes an issue, maybe in 4 or 5 years. But yeah, I'm supportive of it. So yeah.
Councillor Wolfe.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also supportive of the recommendation. The club's maintained these turf wickets for many years, and the proposed agreement isn't introducing anything new, but it continues a long-standing cost-sharing arrangement. As the report showed, the club has demonstrated strong membership growth, and that included juniors as well as a women's program and an integrated cricket team. So I think that this investment supports that and ensures a well-used community asset into the future. As we discussed in the briefing, there has been a notable increase in maintenance costs in the recent season and the one before. But to me, I think this is the environment that we're in right now, and the city's contribution does remain capped at 50%.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon. I just had a kind of question or opportunity to give some more information. So in 25-26, the city's contribution was just over $30,000, and this proposal takes it up to $50,000 per year. We've had a little bit of conversation around the increased maintenance costs, but I was just wondering if, for those of us that are not experts in turf management, if we can just speak to that kind of escalating cost over the last few years.
Thank you, Councillor Greer. Through you, Mayor Zamon. I'm certainly not an expert in turf management either. We employ people to do that for us. The newly appointed board at North Perth Cricket Club have looked at their costs, and they have certainly gone up, as Councillor Wolfe alluded to, over the last few years, rising costs of everything. They've looked at the way they look after the turf. They've applied a different method this year, which they believe will hold it in good stead in the years going forward. There is an escalation of the costs, as we've noted today. We are hoping that stays where it is, but that is the reason that we've put the 50% cap. We are confident it won't go up to that $50,000, and we'll be keeping tabs on the club as they go through. They've appointed a new curator to that facility as well, and they're doing their best to maintain a high level of turf for all the clubs that they, or the teams that they provide to this suburban competition. So I think I'm comfortable with us setting the 50% at 50,000, and we'll work with them to make sure it stays well below that where we can.
Thank you very much for that. I think I've really considered whether that $50,000 feels like too much for the space, and I think on balance, I'm really pleased to have the cap. I'm really pleased that it's 50% cost sharing, and I'm really pleased to hear your contribution there, that there will be ongoing oversight from the city to keep that as low as reasonably possible. I do think the agreement sets really clear expectations over the next 5 years. I do think it's grounded in realism, as you say, with a new committee saying this is actually what we need. I think it's good to be upfront with the cost, and while Charles Berriard is really important to North Perth Cricket Club, I think this is also an investment in the public open space. that so many of us use on the daily round there. So while it's not just an investment in the cricket club, it's an investment in the space for everyone. I'm pleased to support it.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Pouliot, wish to say anything in conclusion? I'll put the item. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. So moving on, we've got 11.2. Councillor Pouliot, you have declared a financial interest, so are you able to leave the chamber, please? Thank you. So we're dealing with authorisation of expenditure for the period 1st of June 2026 to 30th of June 2026. Do I have a mover? That's moved by Councillor Castle, seconded by Councillor Wolf. Councillor Castle, do you wish to say anything? Okay, Councillor Wolf. Okay, anyone else? Okay, I'm going to put the proposal. All those in favour? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you very much. You can ask Councillor Pouliot to come back into the chamber, please, if that's okay. Thank you very much. So now we move on to 12.2, approval to advertise amended council member allowances, fees and reimbursement of expenses policy standard amendment. Do I have a mover for that? So that's moved by Councillor Castle, seconded by Councillor Wallace. Councillor Castle, you wish to say anything?
Thank you for the clarification that was provided and for the amendments from last week. That certainly helped, I think, to clarify what is being proposed. Very happy to support this policy going out for community consultation.
Councillor Wallace, anyone else wish to speak on this? Okay, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so we now move on to 13.1, which is notice of motion by Councillor Wolf in relation to the public toilet network review. So that's in front of you, 13.1. So this is moved by Councillor Wolf. I'm happy to second the proposal. Councillor Wolf, do you wish to speak to it?
I do, thank you, Mayor. This motion can really be distilled into one question, and that question is, how well is our public toilet network serving the people who rely on it? So as the city, we already have a public toilet renewal program, and we have a very strong asset management process. And those processes help us to understand the condition of the facilities, when they need renewal, and where more investment might be required. So this motion seeks to build on that existing work by looking beyond the condition of individual facilities. Because the condition of a facility can't always tell us how well it's actually serving the community. In addition to looking at condition, we should be asking some other questions. So things like, is the network providing adequate coverage across Vincent, or are there gaps? Are facilities located where people spend time, both now and in the future, and are they within reasonable walking distance? Are facilities easy to find, and are they open when people need them? Do people feel safe, and are these facilities designed to prevent crime? Are they usable for seniors, carers, people with disability, and parents with young children? And all of these questions matter because public toilets are part of the infrastructure that supports recreation, public health, social participation, and local economic activity as well. So for many people, particularly some of those groups I've mentioned and those managing health conditions, confidence that a suitable facility will be available can influence whether or not they're going to a community event that we put on. It can influence how long they're spending in a park, and for some people it will determine whether or not they're actually going to leave the house and participate in community life at all. As we're also doing our strategic planning around density and where we're going to put higher density in Vincent, we should understand how those plans for density fit in relation to our plans for public toilets and our existing public toilet network to ensure that where we're going to have more people, we've got that supporting infrastructure where they'll need it. In preparing this motion, I had a look at some other councils at their policies, and for those who have them public toilet plans. The City of Perth and the City of South Perth have both adopted this broader lens where they don't look at public toilets as individual facilities, but they look at it as a network. And their plans consider how those networks function as a whole, including things like location, catchments, accessibility, and opening hours. But one thing that was common across both of those plans was a heavy emphasis on wayfinding, including how visible the facilities are. Are they tucked at the back of a building? Do they have clear and bold signage? Is there information on them about opening hours and alternative facilities outside of those opening hours? So I've tried to carry some of that thinking through to this motion, because when you've got to go, you've got to go, and the facility is only useful if you can find it. So just to bring it back, this motion isn't asking us to commit to a public toilet plan. It's not asking us to commit funding to a particular project, but it just seeks further information and the evidence that we'll need to inform future decisions about the network and investment priorities.
Thank you. As a seconder, I'm very supportive of this notice motion, and I thank Councillor Wolf for having brought it forward. I think this is consistent with a lot of the other work that we are doing as a city at the moment, which is we are trying to take broad approaches to our facilities, whether it be whether it be roadworks or anything the like, to see what is the need, what is it we need to be investing in the future. And I do certainly support taking a whole of Vincent approach to looking at facilities like our public toilet facilities, so that we are not simply responding to individual concerns raised by particular parts of the community at any given point, but that we have a quite measured and strategic all of Vincent approach as to where we need these facilities and where we need to be putting the resources in. I am aware that for people with medical conditions, for people with young children, for people with disability, it is often really critical that they have full knowledge about where public toilets are going to be available, and that we are supplying clean and appropriate public toilets as well that are fully accessible. So it is a good opportunity for us to see where the need is, where we are currently meeting that need, where we as a council need to make decisions about how we're going to invest ratepayer funds to expand those facilities into the future. And I think it's a really timely opportunity for us to do that work, just as we have been trying to do that work on so many other issues as a council. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, very supportive of this. I think it's an excellent review to do. It certainly is part of core business, and is certainly something that we should have a very good handle on what we have, what we need, and what our plans are going forward. I would also note that I think some of this work already exists in the public open space strategy, which mapped out what facilities are in place at each public open space, in not just public toilets but playgrounds and various other structures that might exist. So I would hope that one of the results out of this would be a cross-reference and an integration with that public open space strategy, and also some of the excellent GIS mapping that has been done in the past around seeing what networks exist. So look forward to seeing that.
Councillor Whedon.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Wolf, for bringing this. It's an excellent motion. My take is, while we don't want to see the corporatisation of our public spaces, I'm curious if there's any way this could look, if there's any scope to look at companion businesses with our public toilets. Our public toilets do cop a lot of abuse, and passive surveillance is a great way to limit that, and potentially that could be through small hole in the walls next to our public toilets that we can then lease out. They're built in a lease that they're in charge of cleaning, maintenance. That's, having seen the decline of the bathrooms at Birdwood Square, it's something that came to me, and this is a very timely report, and I was just wondering if that would be something that could be incorporated, just as a very high level, not deep dive. Just, is it something? Yeah.
Okay, did you want to respond to that, administration?
I'll make a quick comment, Mayor Zaman. Yes, we have thought about that. Obviously, we've got the example of the kiosk in Hyde Park, where we converted essentially a gardener's shed into a cafe kiosk, which helps with that activation and passive surveillance, and it's something we can look at the other facilities as well.
And just the only thing I'd add through Mayor Zaman is I think every opportunity we have, we try and integrate new public toilet facilities with activation, whether that be a community space, like a community hall or something like that, or an activated venue. So I think it's a good point. It's not something that we had been looking, because we've already started looking at this issue. It's not something we looked at to this point, so we'll make sure we add that in. It is something we ordinarily do anyway. So.
And through you, Mayor Zaman, just to add, administration has commenced its review of the POS strategy, and we'll be sure to make sure that we consider how these two documents interact, and we'll be having a conversation with Council at a future workshop on the POS strategy.
Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zaman, and thank you, Councillor Wolf, for bringing this forward. I'm really pleased to support it. I'm really pleased to see the inclusion of disabled people, not only for the facilities, but I'd really like to use this as an opportunity to make sure we understand how people can get from the car park or the entrance of public open space to the bathrooms, and make sure they've got an appropriate pathway for people to get there, and or not in some instances. I also really like that it includes children. I'd be really curious to see how our public toilets go for, young kids, particularly. And lastly, I just really appreciate it balances the need for upgrades of our current infrastructure alongside a clear plan for the future. So thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this? Okay, Councillor Wolf, do you wish to say anything in conclusion?
Just very briefly, thank you, Mayor. Thank you to my fellow councillors for the supportive comments. And I also just forgot to thank the CEO for support of this motion, and for directing administration to get a head start on some of this. I really appreciate that. And just picking up on Councillor Castle's comments around integration, really pleased that that can happen. And in a lot of the other examples that I looked at, those who have public toilet plans, there was a lot of integration between other capital works plans with all sorts of plans feeding into each other. So really pleased that we can do that here as well.
Okay, so I'm now going to put the item. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Councillor, for that. Okay, so now we move to 17.1, which is a confidential item. I'm going to we are going to be looking to go behind closed doors to discuss this item. For anyone who is on the live stream, this means that this will be paused and the gallery will be vacated. So the first thing that I'm going to do is seek a mover and a seconder to go behind closed doors. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Castle, seconded Councillor Whedon. All those in favour? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so Wendy, can you please turn off the live stream, and can people please has actually started up. Okay. Thank you to those people who have come back. The recommendation which was decided behind closed doors has been adopted. It was in relation to the annual CEO performance review 2025-26 and the key performance indicators 2026 and 27. And the council, by absolute majority and unanimously, has resolved to receive the Chief Executive Officer's annual performance 2025-2026 report to council, included as the confidential attachment 1. Has endorses the outcome of the performance review that the Chief Executive Officer has met the performance expectations of the position for the 2025-2026 review period, approves the outcome of the remuneration review that the CEO receives an increase of 6.95% to the cash component of his total remuneration package, effective 17th of October 2026, approves the draft CEO key performance indicators for the 2026-2027 review period contained in attachment 2, approves amendments to the strategic focus areas and strategic projects listed in attachment 2 for inclusion within the corporate business plan 2026-27 to 2029-30, and requests that a 6-monthly report is presented to the CEO Performance Review Panel by February 2027. So, there being no further business conduct, I thank everyone who is in attendance and on the live stream, and I close the meeting at 12 minutes